Today, we uncover a chilling case that shook the city of El Paso, Texas, in 2012. A brutal crime that began as a hidden affair but ended in murder. In a town where success and power masked dark secrets, Clare Henderson, a renowned bodybuilder and gym owner, took matters into her own hands when she discovered her husband's betrayal. This is the story of a woman scorned, a husband trapped in his own guilt, and a crime that left the town of El Paso reeling. Emily Rodriguez grew up in a small, modest home on the outskirts of El Paso. Born on April 12, 1986, she was the youngest of 3 siblings. Her father, a hard-working mechanic, and her mother, a part-time nurse, struggled to provide for the family. Emily, always a dreamer, wanted more for herself. She often told her parents about her hopes of becoming a nurse, wanting to follow in her mother's footsteps and help people. Her family encouraged her, reminding her to focus on her studies and stay away from trouble. Throughout her teenage years, Emily worked part-time jobs, trying to save money for nursing school. By 2010, she had managed to enroll in a local community college, balancing classes with her job as a receptionist at a medical clinic. Although her family wasn't wealthy, Emily's warmth and determination earned her the respect of everyone around her. She was known for her kindness, always helping out her neighbors or spending time with her niece and nephews. Conversations with her mother often centered around her aspirations of one day moving to a larger city, working in a hospital, and starting a family of her own. Emily's future seemed bright, but life in El Paso wasn't easy. By 2011, her responsibilities had grown, and she often felt weighed down by the pressure to succeed. She dreamed of something more, a better life, a career, and a family she could provide for. But beneath her gentle exterior, Emily was vulnerable. It was that vulnerability that would eventually pull her into a tragic affair with Daniel Henderson, unaware that her dreams were about to be shattered forever. On March 4th, 2012, Emily walked into Iron Haven Gym, the most prestigious fitness center in town, never to be seen alive again. Days later, her body was discovered in a shallow grave, and the investigation that followed would reveal a web of lies, jealousy, and the deadly consequences of betrayal. The story takes a dark turn with the discovery of Emily Rodriguez's body on the morning of March 6, 2012. The police were called to an abandoned industrial complex just outside El Paso, where a construction worker had stumbled upon a shallow grave. Emily's body was buried hastily, her clothes torn, and bruises covering her once gentle features. The discovery sent fear through the town, but even more unsettling was the question on everyone's mind. Who could have done this to such an innocent woman? Detectives quickly launched an investigation, piecing together the events that led to this tragedy. The first significant lead came from surveillance footage at Iron Haven, the gym owned by Clare Henderson. The footage showed Emily walking into the gym on the night of March 4th, but never leaving. This immediately drew suspicion to Clare, the local bodybuilder who had built an empire out of fitness training. Clare was well known in the community, not only for her gym, but for her brash, dominant personality. She had built a reputation for being fierce, both in business and in her personal life. The detectives began delving into Clare's past and her relationship with her husband, Daniel Henderson. Clare had risen to fame in the early 2000s after opening Iron Haven, which quickly became the most popular gym in the region. By 2008, Claire's name was synonymous with fitness, her training methods highly sought after by local athletes. She controlled every aspect of her business with an iron fist, often micromanaging her staff and pushing clients to their limits. But behind the scenes, Claire's aggressive nature extended into her personal life. Conversations between her and Daniel were often tense, with Claire berating him for not being ambitious enough, making him feel small in her towering shadow. Daniel, on the other hand, was a quiet man, a real estate agent who had always supported his wife's career. But as Claire's dominance grew, Daniel began to feel suffocated. By 2010, Daniel had grown tired of the life he shared with Claire. His once happy marriage had become a prison, where Claire's success and power overshadowed everything. She was always busy running her gym, Iron Haven, which by then had become the most popular fitness center in town. As her fame grew, so did her control over everything in their life, including Daniel. He felt small in comparison to his wife, who constantly reminded him of her achievements and belittled his efforts in real estate. He longed for a softer touch, for someone who would see him not as an accessory to their success, but as a person who needed love and care. It was during this time, in the fall of 2010, that Daniel met Emily Rodriguez. She was a receptionist at a small medical clinic near his office, and their paths crossed one afternoon when Daniel went in for a routine checkup. Emily's warmth and gentleness immediately stood out to him. She had a way of making people feel heard, something Daniel hadn't experienced in years. What began as casual conversations during his visits to the clinic soon turned into longer, more personal exchanges. Emily, with her soft voice and kind smile, was everything Daniel had been missing. Their relationship developed slowly. At first, they simply talked about their lives. Emily often mentioned her family, her dreams of becoming a nurse, and the struggles she faced trying to balance work and school. Daniel found comfort in these conversations, opening up to her about the struggles in his marriage. Emily listened without judgment, understanding the pain he felt. For Daniel, these moments with Emily became an escape from the tension he faced at home. By early 2011, their meetings had become regular, with Daniel finding excuses to visit the clinic just to see her. As the months passed, the bond between them deepened. By mid-2011, Daniel realized that his feelings for Emily had gone beyond simple friendship. He found himself thinking about her constantly, wondering what life could be like if he wasn't trapped in his marriage with Claire. Emily, too, began to develop feelings for Daniel. She knew about his complicated relationship with Claire, but the connection she shared with him made her believe that perhaps one day he would leave his wife for her. They began meeting outside of the clinic, their time together becoming more intimate. By the end of 2011, Daniel was deeply in love with Emily. They spent hours talking about their future, dreaming of running away together and starting a new life far from the chaos of El Paso. These conversations, though filled with hope, were also tinged with uncertainty. Daniel hadn't yet made the decision to leave Claire, but the emotional distance between them was growing more apparent each day. His absences from home became harder to explain, and Emily found herself waiting for the moment when he would finally break free. Meanwhile, Claire, always focused on expanding her business, hadn't initially noticed the shift in Daniel's behavior. She was consumed with managing Iron Haven, pushing her clients to their limits, and ensuring her dominance in the fitness industry. But as 2012 began, something in Daniel's demeanor changed. He was more distant, less engaged in their already strained relationship. Clare, who had always believed her control over Daniel was unshakable, began to sense that something was wrong. In February 2012, Clare's suspicions were confirmed. Through her connections in the gym community, she started hearing rumors, whispers about Daniel spending time with another woman. At first, she dismissed them, confident that her hold over Daniel was too strong for him to stray. But the rumors persisted, and Clare's curiosity turned into paranoia. She began asking questions, subtly probing into Daniel's activities when he wasn't home. It wasn't long before she discovered the truth. One of her clients, who worked near Emily's clinic, mentioned seeing Daniel there more often than seemed necessary. Clare's mind began racing, connecting the dots between Daniel's recent behavior and the time he had been spending away from home. She dug deeper, calling in favors from people she trusted to confirm what she had feared. Daniel was having an affair with Emily Rodriguez. The revelation hit Clare hard, but instead of confronting Daniel immediately, she kept the information to herself. Her rage simmered beneath the surface, her mind racing with thoughts of betrayal. Clare was not the type to lose control of anything in her life, and she wasn't about to let another woman take her husband without a fight. But her response wouldn't be swift. It would be calculated. She planned her next move carefully, waiting for the right moment to confront Emily and put an end to the affair in her own way. This was the turning point, the moment when Clare's jealousy and need for control would set off a chain of events that would end in tragedy. On the night of March 4th, 2012, Clare Henderson's plan was set into motion. It had taken weeks for her to fully craft the perfect scenario. She knew she couldn't confront Daniel just yet. He was too weak, too conflicted. Instead, Clare targeted Emily Rodriguez, the woman she believed had shattered her life. Clare masked her rage behind a calm demeanor, inviting Emily to Iron Haven for a private consultation. She framed it as an opportunity to help Emily with her fitness goals, something she knew the young woman would jump at. Emily, unaware of Clare's discovery of the affair, accepted the offer, trusting the invitation was genuine. That evening, Emily arrived at the gym, the same as countless others who had sought guidance from Clare. The gym was quiet, empty of clients, with the harsh glow of fluorescent lights casting long shadows across the floor. Clare welcomed Emily, her tone calm and professional, giving no hint of the storm that was about to erupt. She led Emily to a secluded room at the back of the gym, a place she reserved for personal training sessions. The room, lined with weights and mirrors, had always been a space of power for Clare, a symbol of her strength and control. But that night, it became something far darker. As soon as the door closed behind them, Clare's composure cracked. She began pacing, her anger finally bubbling to the surface. Emily, still oblivious, tried to follow along as Clare spoke, but soon realized that something was terribly wrong. Clare accused her of destroying her marriage, of being the reason for everything falling apart. Emily, frightened and confused, tried to explain, but Clare wasn't interested in explanations. Her rage, fueled by weeks of betrayal and humiliation, consumed her. It happened fast. Clare's strength as a bodybuilder was immense, and Emily never stood a chance. Clare grabbed her by the throat, her hands squeezing tighter with each passing second. Emily struggled, her body weak against the force of Clare's fury. The room, once a place of fitness and health, became a silent witness to a brutal act. The struggle was over in moments. Emily's body fell limp, her life snuffed out in an instant. Clare stood over her, breathing heavily, the weight of her actions not yet sinking in. But there was no time for regret, no time for second thoughts. Clare's mind shifted into planning mode. She had always been a calculated woman, and even in the face of murder, her instincts for control kicked in. She quickly wrapped Emily's body in a gym towel, moving it to her car parked just outside the building. The parking lot was deserted, just as she had planned, with no witnesses in sight. Clare drove for miles, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly, her mind racing but her face expressionless. She reached the industrial complex she had chosen days earlier, a remote site just outside of El Paso. Under the cover of night, she dug a shallow grave, dragging Emily's lifeless body into the hole. Clare worked quickly, burying the evidence of her crime, convinced that no one would ever find out. By the time she returned to the gym, Clare felt a strange sense of calm. She cleaned the training room meticulously, erasing any traces of what had happened there. In her mind, she had committed the perfect crime. Emily was gone, and with her, the threat to Clare's marriage. Clare believed she had regained control of her life, her gym, and her relationship with Daniel. But it was this arrogance, this belief in her own invincibility, that would ultimately be her undoing. What Clare hadn't counted on was the gym's security system. Installed months earlier, as a precaution for client safety, the cameras captured everything. Emily walking into the gym, but never leaving. Clare hadn't thought to disable them, so confident in her ability to cover her tracks. When Emily was reported missing the following day, the footage became a critical piece of evidence. Investigators quickly noticed the gap between her arrival and her unexplained disappearance. Meanwhile, Clare's behavior in the days after the murder was erratic. She tried to maintain her usual routine, running the gym as if nothing had happened, but those closest to her noticed something was off. She was more agitated, more controlling than usual, snapping at her staff and clients. The calm demeanor she had displayed on the night of the murder began to crack, and her anxiety about getting caught grew each day. She hadn't planned for the emotional toll that would follow taking a life. When Daniel was brought in for questioning, everything began to unravel. The police, already suspicious of Clare due to the gym footage, pressed Daniel for answers. It didn't take long for him to break. Overcome with guilt and grief, he confessed to the affair, telling the investigators everything about his relationship with Emily. He denied any involvement in her disappearance, but his confession only strengthened the case against Clare. His admissions gave the police motive: a jealous, controlling wife who had discovered her husband's affair and lashed out in a fit of rage. As the days passed, more evidence surfaced, each piece adding to the case against Clare. Her carefully constructed life, once a symbol of success and control, was beginning to fall apart. The gym that had been her empire was now the very place where her crime had been recorded. What Clare hadn't considered in her obsession with power was that no amount of control could undo what she had done. The cameras, the investigation, and Daniel's confession all pointed to one undeniable truth. She had committed murder, and now there was no escape. The trial of Clare Henderson began in the summer of 2012, and it quickly captured national attention. What had started as a local tragedy in El Paso turned into a media sensation as the details of the crime, the affair, and Clare's fall from grace spread across the country. The image of a once successful bodybuilder, now accused of murder, fascinated the public. Reporters swarmed the courthouse, eager to cover every twist and turn of the case. For weeks, Clare's face was plastered across headlines, her name synonymous with betrayal and violence. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was tense. Clare sat at the defense table, her once muscular frame now gaunt and drained. Gone was the confident, commanding woman who had ruled over Iron Haven. In her place was someone broken by the weight of her actions. Her defense team attempted to portray her as a victim of emotional distress, arguing that the murder was a crime of passion triggered by the affair. They tried to paint Clare as a woman who had lost control in a moment of rage, driven by jealousy and hurt over Daniel's betrayal. But the evidence against her was overwhelming. The prosecution presented a damning case, highlighting the calculated nature of the crime. They showed the jury the security footage from the gym, revealing Emily walking in but never leaving. Forensic evidence from the shallow grave where Emily's body had been found only added to the narrative of a premeditated murder. The prosecutor focused on Clare's need for control, how her entire life had been built around power, and how the affair had threatened to take that power away from her. This, the prosecution argued, was why Clare had killed Emily. It wasn't just about jealousy. It was about maintaining control over a life that was slipping away from her. Daniel's testimony became a turning point in the trial. He took the stand, visibly shaken, his guilt evident to everyone in the room. He admitted to the affair, explaining how he had fallen in love with Emily during a time when his marriage was collapsing. His words offered insight into Clare's increasingly erratic behavior in the months leading up to the murder. He described how she had become more aggressive, her temper flaring at the smallest provocations. It became clear that Clare's control was slipping long before the murder, and the affair had only pushed her further to the edge. Daniel's testimony, filled with remorse and regret, added another layer of emotional weight to the case. The trial lasted several weeks, but the jury's deliberation was brief. After only a few hours, they returned with a guilty verdict. On August 10, 2012, Clare was convicted of first-degree murder. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read, the reality of her actions sinking in. The sentencing came shortly after, and Clare was given life in prison without the possibility of parole. Her empire, once a symbol of strength and success, had crumbled entirely. Now she would spend the rest of her life behind bars, her name forever linked to one of the most shocking crimes El Paso had ever seen. In the aftermath of the trial, Daniel struggled with the guilt of what had happened. He knew he wasn't directly responsible for Emily's death, but he couldn't shake the feeling that his actions had led to it. The affair, once an escape from the misery of his marriage, had turned into a nightmare that he would never be able to forget. In the months following the trial, Daniel left El Paso, unable to face the scandal and whispers that followed him everywhere. The chilling final thought lingers. What drives a person to kill? And how far will someone go to maintain control over a crumbling life? This is just one of the many cases we have of people trying to maintain control, and it ended in ultimate disaster. Just like the case where a housewife thought she could cheat with her cousin's husband. Kindly like and subscribe so you don't miss out on our daily updates. See you in the next case.